Last election, many people, for the first time, voted for the NDP.
BC NDP leader David Eby started his first day of campaigning with stops in Richmond, North Vancouver, Langley and Burnaby, all areas where the NDP snatched away seats from the BC Liberals during their majority win in 2020 and where Eby aims to hang on. However, recent polling shows the BC Conservatives could gain ground in Richmond and Langley by capitalizing on voter frustration over public safety. Eby acknowledged that people are struggling and says the NDP can make headway on housing, healthcare, affordability, and the addictions crisis with another 4 years in government.
I will be laser focused on reducing the costs that they face every day.
He accused his opponent, John Rustad, of offering nothing but cuts to healthcare and measures that would undo the NDP's progress on boosting housing supply. Rustad launched the BC Conservative campaign from Crab Park in the riding of Vancouver Yaletown. He stood in front of tents and highlighted the homelessness and social disorder he says has grown under an NDP government.
BC is at a crossroads. The question is, are we going to fight for a future, or are we going to continue to manage decline?
BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau, meanwhile, was in Victoria, canvassing in her new riding of Victoria Beacon Hill, an NDP stronghold. While recent polling shows the Greens at risk of losing their 2 seats in the legislature, Furstenau says she's focused on rising above the political mudslinging.
Getting high-quality services delivered to British Columbians, healthcare, education, a social safety net, infrastructure, affordable housing. We have to address these challenges. They're all solvable, but we don't solve them by going to our corners and pointing our fingers at each other.
During a campaign stop here in Langley, Eby says the province is facing problems that will not be solved overnight, but they will not be fixed by the solutions the Conservatives are putting forward. Meanwhile, Rustad says British Columbians are facing a choice between chaos under the NDP or what he calls a common-sense approach by his party. As for which message resonates with voters will be decided on Election Day, October 19th. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Langley.
As Katie mentioned, John Rustad launched his party's campaign in front of a homeless camp in downtown Vancouver earlier today. His wife was by his side as he pushed his party's message of common sense change versus chaos under a BC NDP government. As Mira Baines reports, the backdrop for his launch attracted criticism.
The softer side of BC Conservative leader John Rustad at his campaign launch. His wife by his side as he took a hard-edged approach against David Eby and the NDP.
It's beautiful to be able to see the industrial and the health and activity as a contrast to what David Eby with Justin Trudeau have delivered for people in British Columbia.
Rustad says 1 in 3 people are thinking about leaving BC. His solution, common sense change using a grassroots approach.
So many things that are wrong in this province, but there is hope. There is hope that we can bring change.
At the top of his list, he promised to get rid of the carbon tax, make investments in healthcare and changes to drug treatment and get the economy going. He says the choice is clear compared to an NDP government.
Whether it is tent cities and the crime and the addictions and a collapsing healthcare system and unaffordability, or whether it is hope for prosperity for a better future.
None of his candidates appeared at the launch event, and David Eby took a dig.
John Rustad had a press conference today. He launched his campaign. That was him and some crows. It was beautiful.
A harm reduction proponent who has dealt with addiction himself says the location was a bad decision.
I just thought it was poor taste to start a campaign here. For me as a person who works trying to help vulnerable populations, I just think it could have been, you could have done this anywhere else.
Still, the BC NDP government has struggled to deal with issues of crime, mental health and addictions, and the opioid crisis, making those hot-button issues with voters across the province. Rustad's next stop of the day, a rally at the Coastal Black Estate Winery just north of Comox on Vancouver Island.
Are you ready to turn British Columbia blue?
The northern part of the island has been experiencing a shift towards the right. Rustad is hoping that will result in Conservative seats on the traditionally left-leaning island. The key to winning this election could lie in Surrey, where Rustad will focus his attention next. The BC Conservatives will have to fight over 10 ridings in one of Canada's fastest growing cities. With no shiny campaign buzz and new campaign infrastructure behind the scenes, it could be a tough battle. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.